ECC Timeout talks are brought to you by State Farm. The James Von If Agency is here for the ECC family during these unexpected times. For more information and to get a quote, visit www.vonifinsurance.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to East Coast Conference Timeout Talks, our program where we speak to members of the East Coast Conference community about the good work that they're doing. My name is Bob Drenoff, Commissioner of the East Coast Conference. We hope everyone is doing well. We're very excited today to have a special guest, Mr. Garvenchy Nicolas. Garvenchy is a 2014 alum of St. Thomas Aquinas College. He was a member of the track and field team there, earned a lot of accolades while he was there, several East Coast Conference championship medals. He was named All-Conference several times. Following his time at St. Thomas, he's gone on to be a very busy man, pursuing a career in the business world, being involved in his community. He created and serves as CEO of the community organization Synergy Today. He's an author and very excited, I'm sure. He is a member of the 2020 St. Thomas Aquinas Hall of Fame class. Garvenchy, welcome to our program today. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting that the ECC is having this Timeout talk. That's amazing.
Well, we're going to do this in chronological order because you have several stories to tell, and so I'm gonna start with asking you to tell us about. You're a native of Haiti,
Yes.
and I know you came here as a young man with your family. Maybe just tell us a little bit about how you got to New York and what that time of your life was like.
Yes, so I grew up in Haiti from till I was 12 years old. Before the age of 12, I used to come every summer for vacation in New York or sometimes Florida. And one summer when I turned 12, my parents were just like, okay, because of the insecurity that was happening in Haiti, civil war, unrest down there, that we will be staying in the US to not only to get a better education, but to be safer from everything that was going on down there. So from there, my life pretty much changed. You know, it was a culture shock at first because not only the language, but the lifestyle that we were living in Haiti compared to the lifestyle we started living in Brooklyn. For example, quick example, in Haiti, we have all the animals, the land imaginable. And then when we moved to Brooklyn, it was an apartment with 3-4 families in there. A lot of people in a 2-bedroom apartment. So that was something I was not used to. I was used to land and running around and playing everywhere. So that was one culture shock. And going to school where Haiti was more huge on memorization of stuff when it comes to homework. Here in the US, it was more doing the work, doing homework and reading. And where Haiti would demand that you know everything that you read. So it's just some differences. And there were some differences on how strict the education was, how strict uniform was. It was crazy to me that I was able to wear pretty much anything to school. Okay, when I came to the US, compared to back in Haiti where I went to all boys school, Catholic school, where you had to wear a uniform, where there was a certain, I guess, law rule behind everything that you do. So those are the first like culture shock that I got. Yep. And I went on to graduate from Midwood High School, which is in Brooklyn. I ran track there for 3 years. I started running track my sophomore year there. And it was a great time. And I fell in love with the sport of track and field there. With all honesty, coming from Haiti and my mom and my parents not really having a knowledge of the culture here in the US, I didn't really have an idea of where I would be going to college. You know, most of those talks were done with my coaches of this is what we think is best for you if you want to go away, if you want to stay local. I believe that my head coach had a close relationship with the head coach at St. Thomas Aquinas, And that's actually was the first school that, that came by to visit me at one of my meets. If I'm going too fast, just let me know.
No, this is great. This is great. I know that you were, so you recruited to St. Thomas by
Yes.
a good friend of ours, former coach at St. Thomas Aquinas, Lauren
Yes.
Marcus.
Yes.
Great guy. And so obviously he had that connection. He was able to tell you what the benefits of attending Stack would be. And you went on there to have a very strong career as a track and field athlete there. What was, tell us about the impact, the years at St. Thomas. You majored in what at St. Thomas?
I majored in business administration and minor in international business.
And tell us about your college experience, what that meant to you, maybe as in terms of your overall development as both a student and an athlete there.
Yes. So I always like to just, now that I look back at my college experience, to me it was, it was amazing. It was great. I have no regrets. But with all honesty, living in the moment itself was kind of challenging for me as an immigrant. So when the 2010, when a earthquake happened in Haiti, the government supplied us with what you call a temporary protected status as opposed to a visa that I had. And the temporary protected status is basically an 18-month limit of how long you can stay in the country, and is renewed every 18 months. The only issue about that is you do not know if it will renew every 18 months. So my time at St. Thomas Aquinas, to me, I say that all the time, is I was living 18 months at a time, because anytime if President Obama said, hey, I'm not renewing this program, then I will not be legal in this country. I'll have to go back. That was the issue. So although I had to stay focused, but it was hard to put 100% in your work, in your athletic abilities, when you know that, hey, I might not be there next semester.
Very stressful.
Yeah, very stressful. And as opposed to that, another stress was the fact that I was an immigrant, and under that program, I was not eligible for financial aid. It was my scholarship, and the money was coming out of pocket from my mother, working 2 or 3 jobs, and also from my dad working in Haiti, sending money, and you have to convert that. And the US dollar is a lot stronger, so there's a lot that goes into that. So all this stress was happening, and I was at the age where I was a part of these conversations. So although at school it was an escape, but whenever it was time for that, for the payments and everything, all that stress came back up. And here and there, I think, man, I might not be next semester. I might as well make the best of this race, make the best of this class, make the best of this timeout with my teammates and all that stuff. But as a whole, the sport of track and field, I would say till today made me what I am today. And I say that because of the discipline. Although all these things was happening, the goal of, succeeding and excelling at this championship, the goal of being better, kept me focused in the classroom, not only in the classroom, but being a better athlete itself. And another thing is I've learned from track and field was being physically better was not enough. And track and field was the reason why I started reading, leading to me writing a book. But at the beginning, the seed was, hey, mentally I had to be there. So that was all the impact St. Thomas Aquinas had on me, plus being a student athlete. Was like, okay, you could train as much as you want, but if you're not mentally there. So one of my favorite books I read during my time there was The Power of Now. And The Power of Now forced me to be do all I can do in the present, but stop thinking about the past or the future, like things like, am I gonna be there next year? Just focus on the present, do the best that I can, and get through that. And from that book, different other books that were recommended to me by my teachers that helped me out. Also, St. Thomas Aquinas pushed me to bring that level of excellence that I felt like I didn't really have from my high school years. Just just winging it or doing the subpar was not enough, because it will show, the grades will show that you are not putting all you can to that. So STAT had a lot to do with my, being a student athlete, STAT had a lot to do with my growth and where I am today.
That's a great perspective. I want to ask you also during that time, you know, so it was an you mentioned your transition from Haiti, what your life was like there, to Brooklyn, Midwood High School, and then you move, I would imagine, culturally, also in terms of diversity, you moved to a campus setting that was a lot different, I would guess, than where you were growing up in Brooklyn and the high school that you went to. So that was also a real learning experience for you, I would think.
Yeah, so I could go into that as well. When I showed up to St. Thomas Aquinas, it was no surprise that, you know, I was one of the only African Americans on campus. For example, besides my track team, my cross country team, I was the only black man on that team when I started the first 2 years. It was something I was definitely aware of, and this is something that at first I was happy to be part of, because it was a different environment, pushed me out of my comfort zone to actually see how a different population in this country live and how they think. You know, I felt like in Brooklyn I was in this, you know, the bubble of, you know, not knowing, okay, why do people say this? Why do people say that? You know, because moving from Haiti to Brooklyn, there's a lot of things I was not exposed to. But going to St. Thomas Aquinas, having a different conversation about politics, racism with some of my teammates, you could see that they didn't know a lot of stuff, you know, that was happening in Brooklyn, you know, and some of them will, you know, bluntly tell me like, hey, you are the first African American that I ever, you know, spoke to or hugged or seen as a friend. And these are things that people are ignorant to, thinking that it's still not happening in this country. There's a population that probably never interact with a person of color or black people. And I think that little thing right there has to do with the perspective of everything that's going on in this country, right? So we all want to be in this bubble. Our parents taught us to think this way. That's both sides. That's for black people and for people that live, most of the population in Rockland County, where Stack is. You have parents telling kids to think this way and pass it down to generation. They never interact with the opposite side, right? It's always like Republican or Democrat or black, white, but they never interact. There's never a conversation. So all the idea comes from being influenced, TV or the news or the people around them. So for me, I was unapologetically black about who I was when I was speaking to my friends, and till today they're good friends. But I was happy that I was able to have that conversation with them. It was also, as a person looking from the outside, you could tell there was progress to be made within that school itself, St. Thomas Aquinas, of athlete of color, black athletes being treated a certain way, being only seen as athletes, right? Not being seen as student athlete, you know, not being seen as, okay, maybe we should invest into you being a better student, then you could be a better athlete. It was always that maybe we should invest in you being a better athlete, you know, and being a student come afterward. As long as you have that 2.5 or 2.0 and you're able to perform, then we're all good. So that's why,
you know, when I'm listening to you, you know, one of the things I'm thinking of is, you know, I had asked you the question about how did the college impact you, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking it's very interesting how you, during your time, impacted the college also. Even if it was a small segment, you know, even if it was that team, those teams that you participated on. So let's fast forward a little bit, because I want to come back to this topic when we finish up. But you get out of college, you began your career. We were talking before we came on. You've had a few different jobs in project management. What do your current employer is who? Maybe tell us
Yeah,
about
my current employer is Blue Earth Inc., and they are a technology fintech organization in Wall Street, and I'm currently a project manager at that company.
Okay. What do you do? What's for people that don't know, like me? What does that mean? What do you do?
Yes. So for people that don't know, a project manager pretty much manage the technology projects for the firm. So example would be if we mostly focus on beverage companies. But for example, would be if Pepsi wanted to build a website for its thousands and thousands of distributors, then they will come to us and then they'll say, hey, we want a distribution website, and we'll have developers working on that. But the developers are communicated internally, where you need somebody to communicate what the developers are doing to the client. You need somebody to manage, to make sure the project stay in scope, completed in time, and it's not over budget or under budget. That's what a project manager do by monitoring the project.
You have been a community organizer. You are the founder and CEO of your foundation, Synergy Today. Before you tell us about that organization, well, let's talk about the organization then and what that means. So what do you do within your foundation?
Sure. So Synergy Today Foundation is a volunteer management organization, and we partner with community leaders, other nonprofit, and schools to support them on any community project initiatives. That's the local initiative, but we also provide international volunteerism as well. So right now we're in Brooklyn, Haiti, and Gambia, Africa. So when it comes to the international aspect, we focus on sustainable development, which means poverty, education, climate change. So for the past 3 years, we've been fundraising for scholarships for kids in Haiti and Gambia. And we've been, I think for the past 2 years as well, we've gone to Gambia, we've gone to Haiti and provide backpacks, school supplies, shoes to the students. And sometime for Christmas, we also have toy giveaway. We fundraise here in the US, and then we send out toys, or we also send out funds for them to buy toys for the kids that are registered into the foundation.
What is some of the fundraising efforts that you organize? What are those?
Yeah, so some of the fundraising that we organize is a gala. The main fundraising is a gala every year, every December, and all the funds from that gala is focused on all the education initiatives that happens internationally. Other fundraiser initiatives that we have is partnering with local foundations that are already established. They help us with credibility, they help us bring in sponsors, and those funds help us organize other community events like food drive, or like giving backpacks in the US, or turkey drive. Every year we have a turkey drive in the community. Also help us with organizing trips, historical educational trips for our members or for younger family member of our members.
The focus is on education and development.
Yeah.
Is that something that was that a thing that drew you to founding this organization, the importance of education and helping younger people?
Yes, that's one of the aspects. But the main aspect that pushed me to do this foundation without really having any profession around me, just dropping myself in, was after college. 2-3 years after college, I had all my friends coming back from different colleges around the country, and that's high school friends and college friends, and we'll meet up and talk about how can we'll go out to eat in restaurants, and at the end of every conversation, it was like, I want to volunteer, I want to give back, how do I do that? In my head, I was like, there's probably a lot of kids in our community thinking the same way. wanting to give back, but not having like a location or community where they all could come together and do it. So like our main goal at first was to inspire young professionals like ourselves to give back to the community, get involved in the community, right? So we started with that and getting new members and partnering with already established volunteer management organization like New York Cares, like Volunteer Match, these, all these other organizations that already provides a volunteer opportunities for people that's looking to volunteer. And now we took it a step further where we are kind of like eliminating the middlemen and actually going to the community leaders in the schools and the nonprofits, creating our own volunteer opportunities for new members that want to come in and find a way to volunteer. And then all of us having this soft touch for education and having this touch for being immigrants, knowing that the opportunities that we have here, knowing even in personal note, knowing that what my parents had to go through just to give me a 4-year education, that's that, and to imagine that people back in Haiti, people back in Gambia, Africa, that do not have those opportunities, and they have to pay for things that should just be public school. Then all that aspect of that, all that research that we've done, just push us to, education and development in those third world, underprivileged countries.
Garvenchy, I listening to you, you're a young man, you're only out of school a few years. You talk about getting together with your friends, and it'd be easy. I think there's a lot of people, even people my age, that would say, you know what, I do enough. Let somebody else do that. Where do you think you got that drive? You and your friends, your colleagues that have helped you organize this, where do you think that comes from? Is that something that you took from your parents and your family, from your community? Where do you think that the drive to give back?
I think the drive to give back comes from being educated, right? When I say educated, not formal education, being able to know that not everybody lives the way you live, being able to understand your privilege, whether you're white or black, being able to understand that not everybody eat a meal every day, not everybody sleep under a roof every day, right? And even back in Haiti when I was 12, although we were part of a privileged class, I used to always pass in my parents' car, I used to always pass other people that had less. So since at a young age, I had this thing in my mind, and then come to the US is the same thing. I see thousands of homeless people in New York. It's supposed to be the greatest city in the world. There's still people hurting. And then I go to St. Thomas Aquinas, but we still have programs where we have to help the less in need. So in my head, it's like, okay, so even in this really mostly, white community, very nice homes and very luxury type of environment, we still had people we had to help. So in my mind, it was just like, no matter where you go, and you don't have to, no matter where you go in life and doesn't matter how old you are, you don't have to be a millionaire. No matter what, there's always a way to help. There's always somebody with less than what you have. And if you cannot donate money, you could donate your time. But sometimes that's all you could do. If you cannot donate, and when I say donate your time, you could just be bringing awareness to the problem. You don't have to try to solve the problem, just bring awareness to the problem. So all these things, I think that drive comes from being observant of all the different environment that I've been to, from Haiti all the way to Rockland County.
You should, it's an amazing effort that you're making there, and I know you're touching a lot of people. I want to make sure that before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we talk about you. You're an author. You've talked about your experience as an immigrant. The name of your book is Immigrant. I want to make sure I get it. America's Ghost Writers. That must have been an exciting achievement to write a book. But tell us where the impetus for the book came from and how you put that together.
Yes, so at first it just started as a journal for me. Remember I was telling you earlier about my experiences about living 18 months at a time as an immigrant. So just like not having somebody to truly at first I thought there was nobody to relate to what I was going through, so I just started writing it down. And then from my growth in speaking to other people that are immigrants, the story sounds similar, right, to what they were going through. But the crazy thing is, we all kept that internally. It was not being said to the masses, right? So, like I told you, I was living 18 hours a month at a time at STAT. Nobody knew that, you know. Just know that, oh, you were able to register this semester or not. Nobody knew there was a whole shebang behind it. So all those things I was going through, started writing them in a journal, and then this idea come to mind. Hey, it really frustrated me that whenever the few time I have to explain this immigration process, whenever the few time I have to explain why, it matters that we have a leader that supports immigration, that there's a lot of people that do not have someone forcing that conversation. I could force that conversation in my circle, but some other people don't have nobody forcing that conversation. My idea was like, the only way I could reach as many people as possible is not only to tell my story, but to go around and interview dozens of people that went through the same thing I went through. And I probably interviewed a minimum of 36 people for this book. So it's not only my story, it's like gut-wrenching story of other people where I thought I had it bad, where they had it worse, So incorporating all that into a story and to deliver it to the world to say, hey, this is why immigration matters, and this is why we need to be serious about immigration laws. This is what people that you love, people that you hang out with, people that you go out to the bar with, people that you eat with, they're not telling you, but this is what they're going through. That part wasn't, so it was more important for me to deliver this to non-immigrants, than the immigrants themselves. So this was a process of educating the non-immigrant, the person that don't have to worry about being deported, the person that don't have to worry about any immigration issue.
Important story. I wanted to mention that the reason we started putting this program together 3 months ago was to be able to look at different people's perspectives on what they were going through at this time, tell their stories, and you obviously are a storyteller. I got to think that when 3 months ago, when the pandemic began, you never thought that this part of your life would be like this for so long. The perspective I want to get from you, I was thinking about this when I asked you to appear on this, was that what we've gone through over the last few weeks regarding more discussion than ever about race in America, about social injustice, you bring to this a little bit more of a unique perspective than most of the people that I speak to, because you come at it from both being a person of color in the United States and an immigrant. And both of them are categories that have brought to those individuals a great deal of social injustice for years and years, as well as racism and fear. And you've talked a little bit about your experience already as a young man trying to figure out what your future is going to be. But I'm just wondering in a couple of minutes where how those issues have impacted you, what your perspective is right now, and maybe a little bit about what you think we could be doing in society to help individuals like you.
Sure. So our whole perspective, first it's crazy because for the first time in my short lifetime, that I've seen so many important events happening at the same time, right? So we had the pandemic. So as a leader of my organization, I had to make sure, first I had to really draw out how to respond to that, and also at the same time, making sure the members or volunteers staying safe, right? So, and then we have this thing happen with George Floyd, where for 10 minutes, I'm watching for 10 minutes a man getting his life taken away, right? By a police officer, by somebody that's supposed to protect him. It doesn't matter what the crime he did that time was, but a cop should not be the judge of somebody's life. So that video itself right there triggered a different perspective to me of like, hey, unfortunately, we've seen so many of these videos, but they happen very quickly. Either the cop shot somebody 2, 3, 4 times or even more. But this video was different because it happened very slowly. Shows you that this police officer did not care about what he was doing at that time. So my point of view from after watching this video is, pandemic or not, even if I'm 0.0001% of the reason why somebody's educated about this or somebody is motivated to go and protest and march about this, then I will do the best I can. And I think we come to a point where America or the system can no longer use their perspective or fake it and not make it type of thing. Now they have to do something. They have to put in some real law and policies to change the way police interact with people of color and Black people, right? So I think that so far, the renaming of the streets, the removing of the statues, the police kneeling down, and all this stuff, they are great gestures, but I like to call them really crumbs. They're not real change, you know? They're just perspective. They just, to me, to be honest with you, just manipulation to avoid passing real laws and policies. So I got, like 3 weeks ago, I got in a meeting with my board of directors for the foundation and truly asked them like, hey, this is gonna be out of our comfort zone, but we need to organize a march. We need to organize several marches. So 2 weeks ago, we organized the first march. This was 1,000+ people. And then we took it further even more. Last weekend on Saturday, we partnered with more organizations and unite more organizations. And we had a march that was scanned from 6,000 to 8,000 people. So these numbers are telling you, hey, and this is like a diverse number of people, not only people of color or Black people. This is white, Spanish, Asian people walking, telling us, saying out loud, Black Lives Matter, saying there's a problem with the system. If you have the majority telling you there's a problem with the system, they're living through this, then you need to listen and finally, you know, pass some real laws and policies. And I think that's what's missing right now. My idea is just like, it's unfortunate this is happening, and we need to continue putting the pressure, peacefully protesting, but being out there, not letting the whole hype die down. And because they, like I said, they rename a few streets and everything for us to move on, but educating people, educating people of color, educating people that are white, people that are not Black, that are not understanding how they could help this community. Now, to your second part of the question, how can we, how can we help with the situation that's happening right now? I think it starts very at an early level. I could tell you right now, the plan that I have for my foundation right now is I want to start having these different chapters at different colleges where we do have like a committee of racial injustice. And what that committee would be, will have is meeting at least once a month, watching a documentary on racism, and then discussing it with various people, not only people of color, but mainly white people that need to be educated in these things. And I think, yes, there's no excuse not to be educated in these things, but if we make a proactive effort, putting in people's face, like in regions like Rockland County, where it's mostly white people, then we could say, hey, there's no excuse. Although you did not go out there to do your own education, but within the campus that you live on, there's these programs, there's this conversations are being had by people of color and white people about what could be done, of what the reality of America is.
Well, you know, it's exciting to hear your thoughts, exciting to hear the things that you're planning in your own life and with your foundation. You know, when after the killing of George Floyd, we had posted something on our website, a statement from the conference, and you know, I thought about it a lot, and the thing that I said is, for an organization like ours that focuses on intercollegiate athletics, what we could do, I think, is look to our foundation, which is education. And to me, that's in society, that's always the basis. How do we educate people? And then how do we help move them to encourage them to be more empathetic, to think about other people and care? And those are the things you're doing. So I think we're on the same wavelength there for sure. I'm excited that you've agreed. We're doing our next town hall program on the evening of July 1st for the East Coast Conference. We had a successful first edition of that a couple of weeks ago. We had over 160 people come onto our Zoom and listen to some of our featured speakers, and Garvenchy has agreed to serve as one of the featured speakers for our next program, which we're titling Next Steps. What can we do? And I'm anxious for you to talk about your thoughts and how others can impact. And you know, I admire you for your success as a student athlete. I'm real pleased that you were part of the East Coast Conference, and that you are you're a successful businessman, a successful author, successful in your personal life, and really giving back to the community. You're a leader, and you know that comes from within a lot. I'm pleased that you say that your college years had an impact on you, but I'm sure that the impact came from your family and from just trying to make a difference, and that's, you know, that's what it's about. So, Garvenchy, Nicolas, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time today to talk to us today. I figure, you know, if we keep doing these in a couple of years, we'll come back. You'll be even more successful in the business world, and your organizations will have just grown. I'm confident. Maybe by then you'll have 2 or 3 books out. You know, who knows? You know. But listen, thank you for being with us today. This was our latest edition of East Coast Conference Timeout Talks. Bob Duranoff here. Anxious to hear what you thought about today's program. And again, please stay tuned for that program on July 1. Thanks, Garvenchy.
Thank you so much for having me.